Okay, next one up here, Alex Karp from Palantir Bite Size. Looking forward to reacting to this.
Might read it, the New York Times is actually the most secure, the hardest platform in the world to manipulate and change. Of course, any technology can be abused. But if you wanted to abuse a technology, if you wanted to use the deep state to unlawfully surveil people, the last platform on the world you would pick is Palantir because of the granular way we segment and put together, and the security models and the access control models that are in Foundry natively, not a built-on addendum.
Alex Karp has just dropped a very feisty...
All thinking people who ignore technology absolutely nuts on the right and the left while we're building value. By the way, I asked for permission before I went nuts from our wonderful, slightly conservative and highly substantive partner, and he gave me permission to embarrass him. He didn't realize it'd be this embarrassing.
I think it comes with the territory.
These are my views, not his.
Okay, so Alex, let's get into that. New York Times has an article. Here's the headline. Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. They paint a pretty Orwellian picture of what you and the Trump administration are doing.
Over here, I picked a random engineer, and I said, by the way, we have a contest. Find all the technically absolutely erroneous things in this article in 90 seconds. And I picked a random engineer. I was like, well, how many do you think you could do in 90 seconds? He's like, well, 15, 20. But leaving aside the technical, look, it's
so it's
probably
wrong.
hard
Is that
for
what you're
them,
saying?
I'm sure. Well, it's not. Well, first of all, on the tech side, it is so ridiculous. I read the New York Times. It's literally like I'm a dyslexic. They might as well be hiring me to do a spelling bee. So, and maybe they just have friends who are tech bros, but they can't hire on a meritocratic basis. I don't know. So that's up to them. We have a contest. Find all the errors in 90 seconds. I think somebody will find 50 or 60. But the more important thing is we are not surveilling Americans. We are not building a database to surveil. And if you wanted to do that, the last platform in the world you would buy is Palantir. And don't believe me, go look, spend 10 minutes and look at the architecture of our product. 10 minutes. And then see how ridiculous that is. By the way, writing ridiculous shit in a highly charged environment is dangerous. And the New York Times should take responsibility for the danger they're putting out in the world. There really are people who believe that crap.
Well,
they believe that.
One thing that's true, though, is that you have increased your contracts with the government, and that has accelerated under the Trump administration.
Of course, but by the way, even there, a mathematically somewhat moderately literate person would say, okay, well, they're increasing in government by 45%. That's pretty baller. How are they increasing in the U.S. commercial? 71%. Are we building a database to conspire against our own people in the U.S. commercial context with no sales force? So we're winning. Yeah, great. You know what? Tell everybody we're winning. We are winning. And by the way, we have a rule of 83 while we do it. Basically means we don't have or have basically an sales force, and we're winning. And we really, really financially strong, more secure, more efficient, increase the revenues. Why does the U.S. government buy the product? First of all, it's a product. It's not a waste of time service BS thing that can be abused. By the way, we lost so much revenue in the last 20 years because people wanted to buy things that could be abused. It's really hard to abuse Palantir. You could do services. Who knows what a services company is doing with your data? Or you could do what the New York Times does or consumer internet does. You could resell the data and productize your users. By the way, there's a high correlation between productizing your users and selling them woke pagan BS.
That's a good point. What are you doing at the IRS?
You can't get that with Palantir, but you can't.
The IRS was one example.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, though? I can't say that's like woke stuff, really. We want to understand when it comes down to privacy, that's been a big thing for a lot of people that are conservatives and right for a long time, is they don't want to be surveilled. They don't want to feel like they're constantly under the watch and that the big guys got eyes on them all the time, right? Like there's a lot of, I would say the vast majority of conservatives. So to kind of paint this as this is some woke BS, no. Actually, I would say people that might be more open to being surveilled might actually be on the left rather than the right. The right's always tended to gravitate toward less government keeping an eye on you, stay off my lawn type stuff. So, I understand Alex Karp being offended and trying to pitch it as that, but, to be fair,
We have so many contracts in the U.S. government. I mean, I'll tell you, without the specifics, I can tell you exactly what we're doing in the IRS. We're going to use the most secure platform in the world to replace inept software with cheaper, better software that is more efficient. That's what we're doing. I assume at the IRS, we have so many contracts. I know that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing with 71% of growth. You know what we're doing in the DOD? We're scaring the bejeebers, I'm trying not to use the F word, out of our adversaries by making them scared at night. And you know how we're doing it? By installing productized software that runs algorithms against data that's been lawfully collected. And you can't unlawfully use it in our platform, which is one of the main reasons people buy it and keep it.
All right, Chris, we know you haven't been rendered mute, so I'm going to come.
So if you want to watch that whole clip, you can go to Palantir Bite Size if you're looking to watch the whole thing. But my opinion here is, obviously Palantir not being painted in the most perfect light. This isn't the first time that's occurred. This has been something that's gone on with the company for years, if not a decade plus. You can find old articles written about Palantir surveying this and doing this and doing that, right? So it's nothing new. So it's something to kind of keep in mind in regards to this matter, right? I think it also is kind of a brand strength when you're doing this many deals with government. And if you're really that powerful that you're going to be able to survey all these Americans and have all this data on them, and the U.S. government's going to want to use you. If you're a company, why would you not want to use that product? If it's that powerful and we're going to be able to be big brother over everybody, then you as a company, why would you not use Palantir? Shoot, if it's that powerful, so it's almost like a selling point. So it's like kind of a bad for brand in respect of like, oh, are they surveilling? But it's also really strong for your brand in terms of if they really is that special of a product, why would you as a company not use them? If it's that special of a product, if it's that strong a product, like you should be using them. Like, why you not use Palantir software? So something to kind of keep in mind there, right?
How would you like access to all my best course curriculums? My Becoming Master of the Stock Market course, my Stock Market Investing Mastery course, my Stock Options Mastery course, my Millionaire Playbook. How would you like access to all my best courses, as well as the ability to have access to my 6 and 7 figure plus Discord community, where we're constantly keeping in touch with each other, talking about what's going on in the market? How would you like exclusive weekly videos from me? How would you like the ability to see what stocks I'm buying and selling in my $2 million plus Fidelity account? If that all sounds pretty interesting to you, apply to join my private group. That is going to be linked in the description area down there. You can click on that, fill out an application, and go ahead, hop on a call with Andre. Andre will walk you through the whole process. He'll walk you through the whole group, and you can go ahead and join us in there. Once again, the link for that is in the description area.
Advanced Micro Devices, otherwise known as AMD. $114 stock here today. Stock's up about 115% in the past 5 years, and I think it's going to be up a whole lot more than that over the next 5 years. I think that's just a little child's play, okay? No, in regards to AMD, you got to understand the fun is just about to start in regards to this one. And the reason being is the MI350 is likely starting to go into production. So, the next quarter they're about to report, that could have a very, very small amount of MI350 revenue in there. Like very, very small. But the next quarter, we're going to start to see, in my opinion, based upon everything that's lining up here, massive amounts of MI350 revenue. And then come the following quarter, let's call it winter time, oh my gosh, we're going to be talking about some epic numbers, no pun intended, in regards to the MI350 series. This is a huge deal for AMD. This is their first, the MI350 marks the first real big entrance into AI, in my opinion. Not to say there are other products haven't been toward that way. No, this is just a whole level up in regards to MI350 here. No, in regards to this, AMD, this was actually 2 earnings ago. Lisa Su mentioned something around the lines of tens of billions of dollars coming from the AI GPU lineup over the next few years. Now, she didn't say billions of dollars. She didn't say $10 billion. She said
tens of billions of dollars, which would mean minimum $20 billion, but potentially 30 billion, 40 billion, 50 billion, 60 billion, 70 billion, 80 billion, 90 billion. It's a big number, right? So this is a huge opportunity. It's not like this is just, oh, this is something that can help AMD increase their business a little bit. No, no, no. This is something that will be fundamentally changing NVIDIA's numbers over the next few years. Now, it's very obvious. Everybody likes to compare AMD versus NVIDIA, right? And then what's the MI350 versus NVIDIA Blackwell and all those sorts of things, right? And how are these going to compete against each other? Well, as far as the MI350, this one that's going to likely go in production right now as we speak, right? And you're going to really start to see the numbers in the back half of this year. When it comes to MI350, AMD says it has a 35x improvement, 35-fold improvement in AI inference performance. Now, that's very important. Inference is when you're actually using the AI. It's not just about training the AI, right? Because it's one thing to train AIs to understand things and like learn better. It's one thing to actually utilize the product, right? 35-fold improvement in AI inference. And Lisa Su talks about the company has positioned themselves very well for inference, right? Compared to the MI300X. That's massive, right? Not against some old chip from 100 years ago or something, right? This indicates a major generational leap in performance and positions the MI350 as a strong contender for demanding AI workloads. Additionally, high bandwidth memory. It offers approximately 22.1 terabytes per second memory bandwidth, enabling faster data processing and improved performance for memory-intensive tasks. This capacity and bandwidth clearly outpace the NVIDIA Blackwell B200. Now, additionally, when it comes to value proposition here, one is, from my understanding, AMD is going to undercut NVIDIA's price. That's from my understanding, right? The other part is, from my understanding, these AMD chips should use less power. Now, if you know, one of the biggest constraints in regards to these data centers is power related, energy, right? And so there's a potential that these AMD chips are going to be much more energy efficient, which could drop costs immensely for running these data centers, right? So that's just something to keep in mind here. So there's definitely, this is in my opinion, once again, the first real super competitive product for AMD. But that's just the start. Remember, next year, the company's expected to launch the MI400. The MI400 is a blow off top, okay? That's a blow off the top chip. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that one yet because the MI350 is just about to hit and we're going to see the numbers come through for that. But MI400, whole new level up in regards to this game. And that's when numbers start getting really crazy. But that will be more of a back half 2026 into 2027 in regards to that matter, okay? Now, keep in mind, a lot of people like to, compare these companies. That's why I brought up AMD and these MI350 versus Blackwell chips and whatnot, right? And people are going to keep comparing them. Well, what about the MI400 versus whatever NVIDIA's, best chips are at that particular time, right? And then they're going to be talking about the CUDA software, and they're going to be, they're going to talk about all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to understand, NVIDIA's a $3.3 trillion market cap. AMD does not have to destroy NVIDIA to have the stock perform tremendous over the next few years, right? NVIDIA, in my opinion, and this is coming from somebody that has owned NVIDIA stock in the past and made tremendous gains on this stock, okay? I don't own any NVIDIA now at this point in time. Not this bad company, not that AMD is going to destroy NVIDIA. Simply because NVIDIA is about to move into, starting in the second half of this year, they're going to move into their slower growth era, which is not bad. It's just going to be a slower era of growth in regards to their growth rates for this company. And then it's going to last for the next 5 years, in my opinion. That's going to be a 5-year, slower growth time period for NVIDIA. Doesn't mean AMD is going to completely destroy those guys, right? No, AMD is about to start having the hype. And that's really going to start next quarter. Not this one they're about to report in a month and a half, 2 months from now. No, I'm talking about the next quarter. Because that's going to be the one that starts to have a lot of MI350 revenue. Because that will be a July, August, September quarter at that particular time, right? Which that quarter will probably be shown off and announced probably around Halloween, okay? That's a quarter I'm talking about. So there's already going to be starting some hype and excitement building into that quarter. Because remember, that quarter, they're going to give a guidance on this next quarter. So this next quarter that's going to be coming out in a month and a half from now, they're going to give a guidance number for that Halloween quarter, the one they're going to report around Halloween. And it's going to be scary in a good way. Because, oh my gosh, are they going to have some revenue growth talk about at that particular time, right? So you're going to give some guidance, and I'm just telling you, the hype, the excitement, everything's going to build massively at that particular time in regards to AMD. And we're going to be talking about, the hype and excitement NVIDIA had. That's going to start to transform over to AMD essentially. And I look at next year's revenue growth that kind of analysts have here. I think they're way off. I think they're way off in regards to AMD's revenue growth. Let me show you projections I have for AMD, my bull case for AMD. Okay, so whenever I go to buy a stock, I run a bull case, base case, and bear case. This is my bull case for AMD. So bull case for AMD would be 30% revenue growth from 2026 to 2029, right? Per year on average. Now, some years could be far above that. They could have 50% growth some years. Some years will be below that, right? Net income growth on average, I have 40%. Now, that puts them at 25% net income margins, which is a mile and a half below NVIDIA. Not even in the same stratosphere as far as net income margins, right? 30 to 40p would be very fair if you're growing 30% revenues a year and 40% net income, that'd be just ridiculous. On average in that, a 30 to 40p is so low. But it's a semiconductor company, so there's always people saying, this is the end or something, right? So that would put the stock in 2029 somewhere between $427 and $569, which gives you a compound annual growth rate of, let's say, 40% or more. The stock's 114 today. I like my risk reward. Now, my base case is stepped down from there, but the risk profile is like so attractive in regards to AMD. It's ridiculous, right? Now, keep in mind these numbers that I have. Right? This is my bull case. So that would put the company at a little over $90 billion of revenue come 2029 and $23 billion net income. Look at where NVIDIA is expected to do this year. This year, not in 2029, this year. $156 billion of revenue, $80 billion net income. So once again, even AMD in 2029 still won't even be remotely close, in my opinion, to where NVIDIA is right now. And that does not mean AMD's bad or NVIDIA's bad or anything like that. It just means you got to understand each stock is its own case. And there's just immense upside ahead for AMD here, right? Like the fact that they're going to grow so immensely, in my opinion, over this next 4 or 5 years, and they'll still be way under NVIDIA's revenue and net income. Now imagine if they could get their net income margins anywhere close to NVIDIA. Could you imagine what AMD stock price, we could be talking about a 10x stock. If that's the situation. Maybe not a 1,000x stock, but a 10x stock, right? Now, keep in mind, we haven't even started seeing MI350 revenue, right? MI400, no. And look at the latest revenue number. They increased revenue 36% year over year. 36% before MI350, before MI400. Imagine the sort of revenue growth numbers when MI350 starts hitting later on this year. And then imagine toward the end of next year when MI400 starts hitting. Woo! Because I bet you for those MI400s, they're going to get a big dollar amount for those guys. They're going to get a big dollar amount for those guys. Maybe not, once again, as high as NVIDIA gets, but it's going to be, my guess is, a much bigger dollar amount than the MI350. So do keep that in mind, right? So AMD, extraordinary opportunity here. For those of you guys that do join my private stock group over this next few weeks, if you care anything about AMD, definitely join us in the AMD chat. A lot of AMD investors in there, a ton of AMD investors in there. We're always sharing the latest news that's going on in regards to AMD, opinions, perspectives on the stock, right? And so definitely do keep that in mind, okay?
How would you like access to all my best course curriculums? My Becoming Master of the Stock Market course, my Stock Market Investing Mastery course, my Stock Options Mastery course, my Millionaire Playbook. How would you like access to all my best courses, as well as the ability to have access to my 6 and 7 figure plus Discord community, where we're constantly keeping in touch with each other, talking about what's going on in the market? How would you like exclusive weekly videos from me? How would you like the ability to see what stocks I'm buying and selling in my $2 million plus Fidelity account? If that all sounds pretty interesting to you, apply to join my private group. That is going to be linked in the description area down there. You can click on that, fill out an application, and go ahead, hop on a call with Andre. Andre will walk you through the whole process. He'll walk you through the whole group, and you can go ahead and join us in there. Once again, the link for that is in the description area.
Nike, ticker symbol NKE on this one, $61 stock.
Nike's a fascinating one because you look at this one, stock price down 37% over the past 5 years. I'm buying shares left and right for the past few months of this one. And I think Nike's a really good case study of when a high valuation meets dumb decisions by a CEO, right? So to explain the story a little bit, basically there was a gentleman who got brought in to be the CEO of Nike many years ago, right? And this man came from the consulting world. He didn't really have much to do with Nike ever, pretty much at all. He was from the consulting world, more like, and helped another company run that was basically just a kind of a software kind of related company that was going to grow no matter what. And Nike brought him in, made a really bad decision bringing him in. He made a lot of dumb moves, like getting away from retailers and just like bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, right? And also at that particular time, if we look back at this company 4 or 5 years ago, it traded very high valuation multiples. And so when you got a CEO that makes a bunch of dumb moves and you got a super high valuation on the company, it's going to set your stock up for a massive crash. And that's exactly what we've seen play out the past few years, is a massive crash in regards to stock. But Elliott Hill has come in, and thank goodness the man is coming in and fixing the day. First off, he's getting Nike back to the roots of his company. He's right-sizing the workforce, which means just a fancy way of saying he's had to fire a lot of people, right? And that's going to help margins immensely over the next few years. That's going to help the company run, honestly, much more efficiently. Sometimes these companies add so many employees, they get way bloated, they become bureaucratic, they move slow. It's like, look at Meta. Meta's way better run now after they fired all those employees back in 22, 23, right? They fired so many employees. They're way better run. They move way faster. They innovate way faster now than back then. And I think the same exact thing I'm seeing starting to play out in regards to Nike. So he's right-sized the workforce. He's focusing the company on innovation and the brand, right? Which is what makes Nike magical. And he's also fixed the retailer relationships. So you look back to the consulting day guy that came in, those consulting guys, all they do is know how to run numbers, right? So this consulting guy comes in, runs a company, is like, oh, you know what? We can make even more money, even more margin if we just make everybody go to Nike.com to buy their stuff or use a Nike app. Well, guess what? Not everybody's going to go use a Nike app. I use it. I buy stuff on the Nike app, but I'm one person. That's not how a lot of people like to shop. A massive amount of people still like to go to a mall to shop. Mall. If they didn't, all these malls are out of business already. Malls are still very popular. There's several here in Vegas. Some are on the Strip. Some are off the Strip in the suburbs. They're very busy. People still like to go to Foot Locker. People still like to go to Dick's Sporting Goods. People still like to go, Academy Sportswear or whatever it is, right? Champs. People still like to go to physical stores to buy products. And people like to go to different websites to buy products. If you think everybody's just, going to specifically go to Nike's website and app. No, some people will do that, but not everybody. And so this consulting guy comes in, runs numbers, and it's like, we could make even more margin if we just force everybody. That's not the way it works. And so what happened was other retailers started to platform other brands. Hoka, On, blah, 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 all the other brands. Because they're like, well, Nike's not giving us the product assortment we need. So we're going to start. And then you start hurting your brand because now these retailers are going to put other brands on, right? So now you just hurt your positioning. So Elliott Hill is basically reversing all the very, very not intelligent decisions the consulting man made, which he made a lot of very, very bad decisions, right? And you see something like what Elliott Hill just did here, right? Nike to sell products on Amazon following a 5-year absence. Yeah, Nike hadn't been on Amazon for 5 years in terms of having their own store on there, right? Dude, you got to be on Amazon. Come on, man. It seems like everybody shops on Amazon. Like, in this day and age, you got to be on Amazon. And so Nike's now going to be on Amazon, and I'm sure that's going to help their revenue growth immensely next year in 2026, right? And I'm sure it will help their profits as well. And so Nike's not taking the standoffish approach of like, we're not going to give Foot Locker as much inventory and all the sporting goods stores and Amazon. No, they're taking the approach of like, we're going to make sure we give these retailers great products so they can make a lot of money. And at the end of the day, here's the deal. When Foot Locker makes a bunch of money, Nike makes a bunch of money. If Amazon's selling a bunch of Nike shoes, guess what? Nike's going to make a bunch of money off that. Bottom line, Bottom line, okay? Now, here's kind of the timeline of where I'm at in regards to Nike and how I see this game playing out. The end of 2025, the company's going to get back to revenue growth. I think you'll actually start to see some revenue like uptick the very end of this year, okay? I'm talking about calendar year in regards to all this because Nike's fiscal year is like a weird thing. I'm talking about calendar year, okay? 2026, I think we're going to start to see major margin earnings per share growth in calendar year 2026 for Nike. Like major. Not going to be small, monumental, okay? Also in 2026, calendar year, I believe we're going to start to see double-digit revenue growth again. Baseball partnerships are getting in good. They're going to have easy comps because the comps, especially in this front half of 2025, are just going to be cake to comp against, essentially. And so, boom. And then how I see this thing kind of playing out a little longer term, if we're talking about calendar year 2027 through calendar year 2030, is I think that Nike will eventually get to kind of just like a 5 to 9% revenue growth per year with double-digit earnings per share growth per year, essentially, which is beautiful, man. Beautiful. And that will get Nike stock eventually back to $100, and then we could be talking $150, and then hopefully blown to all-time highs of like 200 plus. So it'll be a multi-year, time period. But keep in mind, a lot of the gains in regards to Nike could easily come in the next, like, we can call it 6 to 18 months. And the reason being is if you think you're going to be able to wait on a Nike until everything's perfect and the sun's shining and everything's great and everybody's optimistic, dude, by that time, Nike could easily be $120, $150 a share, $175 a share by the time everything looks perfect again. Because what's going to happen with Nike is as the story gets better and better and better, right? More and more investors are going to buy in. And then more and more people are going to want to hold their shares and hold their shares and hold their shares. And so you get more and more buying pressure, not much selling pressure, which makes the stock go up and up and up. So that's why I've been positioning in this one so aggressively, because I am of the belief that what I have here is going to play out. And as the story plays out, the stock is going to increase rapidly. And by the time everything looks great again, right, in 2027, 2028, 2029, dude, the stock's already going to made its massive run. And by that time, we'll probably be talking about there'll be smaller gains left in the stock. That's my belief on what will happen here, okay?